Welcome, 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 beloved church family of the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Paul Persuti, and I will be your host tonight. I welcome you to our midweek Oasis Wednesday night service. As you'll be able to experience tonight, our Wednesday night Oasis is a place where we come together as a community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. Most Wednesday night services build upon the theme of the previous Sunday, sharing in a satsang style, expressing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings be informal, intimate, and interactive. Our theme for 2023 is Living Out Loud, and our monthly theme for October is Playing with Paradox. Last Sunday, Reverend Sally Bartholomew introduced ideas inspired by the talk title of Shaking Up Our Worldview. And tonight, our speaker will continue the exploration of the same topic. So as we gather tonight, I really want to welcome you and extend the same invitation to you that was extended to me when Reverend Sunshine Michelle invited us to come to the center well. To do so, she shared these 6 C's for us to consider and incorporate. Come with a heart of love and tenderness, which she calls compassion. Come ready to exchange openly, communication. Come in friendship and family, we'll call that camaraderie. Come in harmony and ready to share, communion. Come in partnership and cooperation, that's collaboration. And come in spiritual awareness and truth. That's what she calls consciousness. So as we move into our program tonight, these 6 C's are the premise of sharing a wonderful evening with you tonight. If you are new to our community, please visit our homepage, www.oaklandcsl.org, and click on the I'm New icon and look at the lower left-hand corner of that page to submit your email address. Once you do, you'll begin receiving the Village News newsletter once a week in your email. It has all the information on what is happening at the center in the coming weeks. So before we get started with the talk, please mute your own audio microphone during tonight's service. You can leave your camera on, but when you mute your audio microphone, it will improve the quality of our recording and tonight's transmission. Also, please stay tuned through the end of the service tonight to receive special and important announcements about what's going on and coming up at our center. So right now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Reverend Sunshine started something when she re-invited someone to come back and speak again, and she calls that the encore. So our speaker tonight is doing an encore presentation, and she is Congregant Crystal Fry. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Blending neuroscience, conscious leadership models, spirituality, and a unique international perspective of diversity, Crystal Fry is a powerful change agent in her work as a coach, facilitator, and fear slayer. Whether delivering leadership development initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging interventions, life coaching, or spiritual messages from beyond, she brings clarity and an enthusiastic sense of possibility to any challenge. Going deep to light up and overcome any shadows of fear and limitation, she helps bring more love and more meaningful and fulfilling experiences to life. Crystal inspires those around her to identify and activate their highest and best possible outcomes with the power of presence and response ability. So with great pleasure, let us welcome the wonderful Crystal Fry. Crystal, I turn it over to you. And as we do with every organized event at the center, we open with prayer. Will you be doing the honors this evening?
Thank you so much, Paul. I am here supported by Reverend Sunshine in prayer. Reverend Sunshine, would you lead us in opening the Sacred Communion?
But of course, and I appreciate the invitation, Crystal, and I appreciate you coming back. I'm so excited by this. So, beloved community, let us come together as we always do in prayer, where we bring our hearts together as one, in that divine oneness of spirit that we recognize is everywhere present, all at once, every place and space, dimension, time, nook and cranny. There in the midst is the divine power and presence of the infinite. And as we take that breath, we know the infinite breathes through us. It breathes life into this circle tonight that we are convening at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living for our midweek oasis service, our satsang service. And so we lift it up in the highest praise and honor. We lift it up into that place that we know there is divine order, there is divine timing, there is divine harmony, there is divine love that is being expressed tonight through Crystal leading us in her talk. I bless her knowing that her words are ordered and that she is able to listen in deep to Spirit speaking through her as a vessel of sacred service. And that we are all inspired and encouraged as we listen in, as we convene and talk together, as we lift up this topic that she brings to us in her special way. We are so blessed here in community to be together tonight. Our abundance is infinite and grows and grows and grows in so many ways. In this divine gratitude and love that we lift up and send forth, we bless, we love, we share, and we let it be. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine, for that beautiful prayer and also for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be in community and so grateful for this community. And I wanted to start off today actually by thanking all of the people who touched this talk, who helped me in its formation. It was Rev Sally, and you're gonna hear a lot more about her. A lot of this talk is in response to her talk on Sunday. I also spoke with Deborah Jackson, Paul Preciati, Gabriella Condi, Dr. Tracy Brown from Dallas, and Reverend Dorica from East Bay. So everybody had like a little piece in this, and it strikes me what a rich community we have and what it feels to be held in community. So I start from a place of gratitude, and I want to ask everybody to start with a deep breath with me. You know, the power of the breath is what I understand to be our greatest power for self-regulation and self-management, which is the management of our lives and our affairs. But most importantly, I see it as a tool to access my deeper self. So join me in this breath. We're going to breathe through the nose, into the belly. And as you feel the energy around your head, I want you to exhale and bring all of that energy down to your heart. Maybe even put a hand on your heart. See if you can feel your heartbeat. Notice all the space around your heart. And especially that place behind your heart. This is where I think the best answers come from. This is where we have direct access to the divine. And this is where I want to speak to you from today. And this is where I hope that you can listen from as well. This talk is an invitation to not only play with paradox, but also to practice curiosity and vulnerability. This is going to be a highly interactive talk. I'm going to be asking you to get curious and to be vulnerable with me and each other tonight as we put into practice, as we walk our talk as practitioners of science of mind. So I'm going to start with my worldview. And I'm going to share mine just as an opportunity to get to know each other a little better, but I want you to be thinking of your own worldview as I share mine. And Peter, can you put up that worldview slide? So no need to invent the wheel here, right? Sally brought these 4 categories to the service on Sunday, and I think it's a good place to start, right? Like, what is our worldview? So for me, the attitudinal, right? This is our general disposition and character. For me, I'm an optimist, a learner, a change maker. I'm hopeful, I'm direct. I used to be brutally honest. Now I'm moving into beautifully honest, because I really believe that our truth is kind and that our authenticity is divine. So those are just a few of the things that make up my attitude. And of course, I'm not going to cover it all. And I'm giving you the best of me because I get to choose and present. Ideologically. So the reason why I define these, because I didn't actually know what the difference between ideology and philosophy was. So I looked it up, and from what I can tell, ideology is your values, beliefs, and ideals. So these are individual to us. So for me, ideologically, I hold a few many beliefs. I think actually that's the point of this whole part, is that we can be a lot of different things at once. And that's going to be important when we're going to come back to it later. So I'm a pacifist. I believe in peace. I'm a naturalist. I am in constant contact with nature, and I believe that all the answers we need are in nature, that nature has provided us everything we need, the greatest example of diversity, the greatest example of balance, harmony. I really love nature. And I'm also an activist. And this piece is where I'm really passionate, and it's connected to my own rigidity. I'm going to talk more about it later, but basically anywhere I see domination or oppression, I want to make change. So that makes me anti-settler, colonialist, capitalist. I'm anti-white supremacy, ableist, cis-hetero patriarchy. I stand for unity in diversity. I stand for human rights. I stand for equal access to resources. These things are really important to me, and I've lived my life trying to promote and advocate for myself and others in these ways. My religious worldview, I would say because of the distaste for oppression and dominance and exclusion, I have kind of steered away from most religions, because I find an element of those in most all organized religions. Even the most peaceful ones seem to have some sort of exclusionary factor that I just can't get on board with. And so that's why when we get to the philosophy, the science of mind, philosophy really resonates with me. Our philosophical worldview is made up, is how we understand or comprehend the nature of the universe and its existence in general. And for me, it's spiritual. I truly believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I believe God is all there is. I believe in divine order and divine timing, which means everything is always happening exactly as it's meant to be. Even though there's a lot of friction with that we'll talk about later, I am a truth seeker. So just for a moment, just kind of consider for yourself where you are on these different axes in your worldview. Thank you, Peter. I think we're good with that slide. So being a truth seeker, I struggled in college. It was the first time that my worldview was really shaken up. As you know, when I was younger, I lived in a trailer park. I was called trailer trash and ghetto rat and all these discriminatory phrases and insults. And then I found myself at the University of Chicago, which is an extremely elite institute. The year that I went there, the Prince of Saudi Arabia was one of my peers. And it began to just, first of all, just the experience of connecting with other people at that level was really wild for me, right? It began to expand my mind, just connecting with so many people from all over the world. But then I began to really get into my education, and everything that I learned about America and what America stands for and our impact on the rest of the globe, like my whole understanding was shook. My understanding of race and white supremacy, came alive because I hadn't been taught anything about that. I had no idea about our history in the United States and globally. I began to understand globalism and neoliberal development and the impacts of colonialism. And it just shook me to my core. And I was a very serious student. As you can imagine, I wanted to prove myself. I was working very hard to get to the truth of things. So not only do I have this deep-seated value around truth and understanding and learning, but also I wanted to perform at a level that proved to the rest of the world that I belonged there. So I was working so hard. And what I found as I began to learn and I began to write papers and have to really understand and dissect and come up with my own positions on really complex ideas, I began to get this sense that there was no truth. The more I looked, the deeper I dug, the more complex it got, the more layers there were, the more contradictions and paradox. And I began to see that there were great limits to our ability to use logic and reason and this brain to understand things. I started to see that, everybody in the class was writing a paper that was just as good as mine, but totally different. We were all coming from different worldviews. And as I moved on, by the time I was about finished, I had completely given up, totally disillusioned with the academic. And I had adopted the paradox mindset. Peter, can you put up the slide for me? The paradox mindset is very simple. It is the shift from either or to both and more thinking. So Niels Bohr was a physicist, and he is the physicist who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for creating nuclear fission. He understood that energy can be at the same time a wave and a particle. And this was mind-blowing to him. How can it be both? But it helped him arrive to this quote where he says, "The opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. but the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth. And so the greatest thinkers of the world, right? Harvard did a study of they surveyed 22 different Nobel Peace Prize winners, and they all shared this paradox mindset. Albert Einstein talked about this. So we're really in great company when we strive to adopt this paradox mindset. Thank you, Peter. And I was there, right? And this is how I see myself. I see myself as a both and more, open at the top, all-inclusive kind of thinker. But sometimes I run into rigidity. And this Sunday, when Reverend Sally spoke, I ran into some of my own rigidity, and it totally changed this talk. I had a whole different approach and stuff I was going to say, content I was going to use. But because I was so triggered in Sunday's talk, I knew that this was the place where I could get personal and vulnerable with you and invite you to do the same thing. So the experience itself was a paradox because I love Reverend Sally. I think she is a total earth angel and spiritual badass. I love the way she does. I can feel the peace radiating from her whenever we connect. I could not say enough about Sally. I have deep respect for her. And I loved that she brought conditions to her talk, right? But when she mentioned the Ukraine conflict and then the Israel-Hamas war, I felt myself tense up. And I want to be very careful here because I truly care for the suffering of everyone in those conflicts. And what I'm going to say now is not to diminish that in any way at all. But what I've noticed in the 5 years that I've been a part of this community is that I've heard a lot about the Ukraine war and now the conflict in Israel, but there are other conflicts that are much bigger that we are not talking about. And to me, that says it's a outpicturing of white supremacy, giving more importance to people who look like me, and I reel against it. And so I was very uncomfortable, and I was very uncomfortable when I called Sally to ask her if I could talk about this. But I want to say today, I want to name some of the other conflicts that are really big. In Ethiopia, in the Tigray region, that is where the largest conflict that is happening on our planet is and has been for the last 6 years. Last year alone, over 100,000 people died in the conflict. And over the last 6 years, they estimate somewhere around 800,000. That's twice as big as what's going on in Ukraine, and maybe 10 times as big as Israel. But I've never heard anybody in our community mention it. Same thing for the Syrian civil war. 580,000 people have died. And the Yemeni civil war, 377,000. And that's just in other specific armed conflict. I also just, out of curiosity, looked up what was happening in Mexico and Central America. The narco traffic conflict has caused hundreds and thousands. I couldn't even find a number. But last year alone, just in Mexico, it's estimated that 30,000 people, or 3 times as many people who have died in Israel and Gaza and Palestine, that have died in Mexico, right here in our backyard. And it's very much a part of our responsibility, because the only reason that conflict exists is because of the US demand for narcotics. And so when we talk and we focus on one group of people, or we identify and pray for a specific group and not these other groups of brown and Black people, it hurts me. It stirs me. And this is where I find a rigidity in my worldview. Now, I know that there are a lot of other reasons that Reverend Sally brought that up. Not to mention the media, her own personal experience, the connection to the Holy Lands and our sacred community. So it's not that I don't understand, but it's a place where I know I need to do work to soften, because I welcome in those emotions, but the danger is that I put a distance between me and Reverend Sally, or me and this community, me and Oakland Center, right? That it becomes a dividing point. And so when I feel these sorts of things, I see it as an opportunity to bridge and to connect. And so I offer this, and I'm getting really vulnerable with you all, because I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. I truly believe that the polarization, this us versus them, is the greatest threat to the survival of humanity. And we see that not only in the conflicts that I'm managing, and by the way, there's a huge uptick in violent conflict that's happened in the last few years. And I really believe that that is tied to this kind of furthering polarization. Like, instead of getting closer to each other and better understanding each other, we keep going further apart. And we see that here in the US, I think, in our political system, and we see how it's detrimental to our progress and well-being, because it literally shuts down the government. We didn't have a shutdown this year, but we almost did. And sometimes it's like they might as well be shut down because they can't work together. And what I want to see is us building bridges and learning how to work together. So I'm going to invite you to a breakout room. And Peter, if you could please put up the circle slide. So I'm going to ask you to share a piece of your worldview where you feel rigid. You'll recognize this by where you want to be right? If you know you're right and you would never move on it, I want to ask you to step a little outside of your comfort zone, or maybe a lot. See this circle here? This is kind of like how we learn. And when we're in our comfort zone, we're not in a learning mode. We're comfortable there. We're not doing anything. We want to step outside of our comfort zone into the stretch. And this is where we practice our vulnerability. So I want everybody just to notice where the panic zone is, that there is a panic zone, and that's when you've gone too far. Okay, I don't know what your level of comfort is. I don't know where you are used to practicing vulnerability, but I want to make sure that in these breakout rooms, you keep it in the stretch zone. You step out of the comfort zone, but you don't go so far as to panic yourself or to make the other person, your partner, your learning partner. We don't want to send them into panic. So choose something that feels like it's in this green zone. And we're going to send everybody out. You're going to have a learning partner, 3 minutes each. And the goal is to practice vulnerability and to share one place in your worldview where you feel or experience rigidity. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, great. Oh, Constance, yes?
Can you explain what you mean by rigidity? Because it seems to me what you said was just something that you believed very strongly and you called attention to it. I wouldn't call that rigidity. So can you explain a little more what you mean by rigidity?
Absolutely. So I was able to recognize what was going on for me. I was able to recognize that it was a trigger. I was able to recognize where it was coming from. But if I had stayed in the feeling and I had been rigid in that belief and that passion and that feeling, I may have pulled away. I would have said, I am wrong, right? I am right, and they are wrong. And there wouldn't have been the openness at the top to actually explore the rightness of that message, because there was a lot right about that message too. So any place where you feel right and others are wrong, or you feel really righteous and there's not room for learning, curiosity, flexibility, meeting of the minds, that's what I mean by rigidity. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Because I've already been triggered in your talk.
Okay, great. Are we, I mean, not great that you were triggered. I think it's good when we trigger each other, because that's pointing to where we have something to work with, and where we can smooth things out. So if there was a trigger and you have some feelings about it, Constance, I invite you to have a conversation with me. And that's a big piece of the message today, when we take issue with each other, to go to each other, to bring those issues to each other, and to look for the opportunity to build the bridge.
Yeah, we will. We'll have that conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Constance. Okay, are we ready for the breakout rooms, Peter?
Yep, ready.
Okay, here we go. 3 minutes.
You all didn't give me the chance to say goodbye to my partner.
Oh, I am so, Dorothy, go ahead. Let them know.
I wanted to say thank you, Christopher, for listening to me. I expressed to Christopher for the first time, I was listening to Reverend Eloise's service about 2 weeks ago, and she talked about being in Ghana. And her and her son, Kwame, were on their way going somewhere, and they saw this man laying on the side of the road. And Reverend Eloise said, Kwame, let's pick him up. And Kwame said, no, Mom, we can't pick him up. We can't pick him up because the hospital will charge me for picking up a person who was sick on the side of the road. And I said, you know what? We give money to all these other countries, but we don't give money and services to people of color. And I don't understand that. We're willing to give billions to the Jewish community, to the Ukrainians, and what is happening in Ghana has been happening for years. There's something wrong with this system. And I have to say, I'm complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. And I agree. And it's good to be acknowledging these things in sacred communion in this community. I'm really grateful for it. I'm really grateful for this space. I hope it's not the last time I'm ever invited back, triggering people and shaking it up. But okay, we're gonna talk now about ways to shake up your worldview. And I'm going to share 3 ways that I really like. Peter, do I have a slide on this? I actually forget.
No.
Okay, never mind. No slide. Never mind, Peter.
We've got all the slides, so.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wanted to keep it mostly discussion. So I'm going to tell you the 3 ways and you can just keep track. First and foremost, spiritual practice. Okay, the meditation that we did, the prayer that we did. One of my favorite is the loving kindness prayer. And when I do the loving kindness prayer, I pray for myself. I pray for everyone I know and love. I pray for the people who I find difficult or challenging in my life. I pray for all of the good people of the world, right? The ones who, if they had to choose between peace and war, they would no doubtedly hit that peace button. And I know that we are the majority. But then I also pray for the people who, I call it the sleeping sickness. And I think we all have the sleeping sickness to some degree. It's when we don't remember who we are, who and whose we are. But the sleeping sickness, the people who have the sleeping sickness the worst, those are the people who put the profit, who put power, who put privilege, pleasure above the well-being of our planet and our people. They're the ones who don't know that our well-being is interconnected, period. So I pray for them too. And that helps to open up a little bit of space in my heart and to hold them in a loving place. And when I do it, I kind of imagine all of the good people, right, all around the world, like Care Bears staring them, right? We're just sending them so much love, and the divine love is coming down from above, and to a point where they cannot deny their own love for themselves, for them family, for their communities, and for the whole world. So this is a place, this is something I use to shake up my worldview, where I can practice loving Donald Trump, for example, or the worst perpetrators of crime and war. Other ways you can use your spiritual practice to shake up your worldview. Oh, I think I already said them. Prayer, meditation, and I'll ask you later if you have any other ones. The second way that I think you can shake up your worldview is to learn more. Get curious. Okay, and I almost put educate yourself, but there's something about educate yourself that feels like elitist, or like there's, it's really just about expanding your perspective. It's about learning about the other side. We tend to learn more and more and more and more about what we think and what we believe, and we don't even touch what the other side is looking at. Take a look at what they're reading, at what they're watching, get a sense of what's going on. And that takes me to number 3, which is to have a conversation with someone who thinks differently than you. Now, that's everybody, right, at some place, but you know what I mean. And the best example that I can give of this, and I know it was in preparation for this talk, and this is what the talk was going to be all about, is I met a man last week who is from Ukraine who sides with Russia. And this blew my mind, because what he said to me is that Ukraine is one of the places in Europe where there is the strongest hold of neo-Nazi activity. And he actually believes that, well, his family had to leave Ukraine for this reason. So he is an immigrant here, and he cannot go back to Ukraine. And for him, what's going on in Russia and the way they handle that specific issue is better and therefore preferable. It's like basically he was like of the two evils. And so that really blew my mind and expanded my perspective. And I don't know whether than having a conversation with him, how I might have learned about that. So I'm not claiming any truths here. If anything, I'm claiming that for every one truth, there are a million other truths. And it's really this both or more approach that we want to embrace. We have our spiritual truth and our own truth, and so does every other person. And what I know is that as many people as there are on the planet are the paths to God. And so we're gonna go into one more breakout room, and I'm gonna ask you guys to talk about your.
Crystal, before you do that,
Yes.
you said, let's go back to the 3: spiritual practice,
Spiritual practices, learning more, and
and
having a conversation.
that's it. Thank you.
It's in the chat, Paul.
Oh, now I see it. Thank you. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go back into the breakout rooms with our learning partners, and we're going to spend 3 minutes, each one of us, talking about how we can shake up our worldviews. And it may or may not be related to the rigidity that you discussed earlier. But any idea? What science tells us is that practicing the paradox mindset and shaking things up in this way is a pathway towards greater creativity, flexibility, and productivity. And wouldn't those attributes be helpful in changing the world and building a world that works for everyone? So Peter, go ahead and put us in our, well, oh wait, does anybody have any questions about what we're doing now? Okay, great. I'm gonna say, Rev Deb, so what I'm hearing is you're rigid in your flexibility. You're rigid in your openness. It's awesome. Okay, so how did that go? Did everybody get vulnerable again? Everybody is you feeling like you shook it up? Maybe even like shake the body. Let's see how that feels in the body. How you doing? Okay, so I don't really have more to say. I want to hear from you. I would love to go ahead and turn this over and see if we could do a little bit of debriefing about the experience of looking within ourselves, feeling for our rigidity, and considering how we might shake it up. Does anybody have anything to share?
Crystal, let's make sure we do it in a laser kind of way when we ask people to share. So let's all go into gallery view real quick and raise your hand either way that you can. We are coming close to the end of our time, but this was such a rich and wonderful and necessary discussion that I feel we need to honor it. Reverend Sunshine, I hope we can for just a few seconds. If you have a lasered response to your interacting, she said we were going to be interactive, so, and she was right. Please raise your hand so we can get recognized and we can hear your voice.
Okay.
Dr.
Judith, go ahead.
I let's see, laser it. I'm in a state of confusion and I'm trying to feel how that works with everything that you said today. And it's about the situation, the war in Israel. You know, the person who grew up in Judaism, me, is having an argument or a discussion with a person who has read some more about what's been going on. And I don't know where I fit with, am I being rigid about it? I don't think so. I think for a moment, it's not settling into anything. I don't think, they're right and these other people are wrong. I never went that way, but my heart is hurting with it all. So that's all that I wanted to say about it. But this sort of put me into a state of confusion. I need to think about the concept of being rigid more, where I need to examine more. It didn't immediately strike me, but the idea of it is very important. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for engaging. And I just want to honor both perspectives within you and embrace them with a whole lot of love and warm fuzzies.
Okay.
Anybody else want to give a quick statement on their experience tonight? Thank you, Dr. Judith, as always. Lula, is that you coming online, I think?
No.
Oh, well, hello, Lula. Okay, if there's nobody there, we're going to, first of all, do what's most important. And I think that's showing our appreciation for Crystal. I think she did a marvelous job shaping up my worldview. Thank you for that. You left us.
It was so rich.
So rich. A lot of things to talk about amongst our groups when we meet. So thank you, Crystal, so very much for doing what you did. I thought it was wonderful. Also, we can rewatch it on YouTube. If there is a piece that we need to revisit, we'll see that on Monday when Constance puts it up for us. So Crystal, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's a joy to work with you. Thank you. Or play with you. Let's use that term. That's what Christopher tells me. More play, less work, Paul. Okay, Peter, we have some announcements important to share. and make sure you check the chat, Crystal, for people responding to you. So you also know how wonderful you are. Great. This Sunday, October 22nd, the Paradox conversation continues. Reverend Sunshine Michelle Coleman will focus on the tyranny of the or. Oh boy, dread it, dread it. Meditation at 10 and service at 10:30, and by 11:30, you will be out of dread. I promise. And we'll re-enter the conversation next Wednesday, where I get to do an encore congregant consideration of the same subject, the tyranny of or, at 6:30 on Wednesday, and service at 7. I'll be on Zoom, and Reverend Sally will return to hosting that night, so I don't have to do it all. So please join us both on Sunday and Wednesday. We're going to wrap this month off so we all feel good about where we're going forward into next month. All right, big date change alert. The Diversity Circle fall potluck is Saturday, November 4th at 11:30 in the social hall. That's a change from what I advertised last week. Get outside of the Zoom box, bring a dish of your favorite cultural heritage, and join in the discussion of what's next for the Diversity Circle. This is their last meeting of the year. They take December off, and they want to start forming what next year looks like. So please join them for that. If you haven't already heard the news, Marianne Williamson is coming to Oakland Center this Saturday, October 21st, from 7 to 9 p.m. There's no charge for this event, and all are welcome. However, Reverend Sunshine wants me to stress with you, and please spread the word, that the OCSL community can enter at 6 p.m., at 6 o'clock, and the doors open to the public at 6:30. So we get to get in a little bit early, okay? So spread that amongst our community. Also, you can see more information. Please check our events page. Today is the last day to nominate a nonprofit partner for 2024. I know it says Monday on there, but today is Wednesday the 18th. So today is the last day. You can download the application from the nonprofit page on our website under the About Us page. There are only 20 spots available to showcase and sell your creative gifts at our holiday craft fair on Sunday, December 3rd. Applications are due Wednesday, November 1st, and space allocated for tables will be on a first-come, first-served basis. Paper applications are available on Sunday in the social hall, or check out the online application on the events page of the website. Get your dancing shoes on and be ready to jazz it up at our music concert on Friday, November 17th at 7 p.m. The performance lineup is fantastic. Tickets will be on sale this Sunday. Make sure to get your ticket before they are gone. Now, special announcement. After a pandemic hiatus, the Evening of Blessings is back and is happening Friday, November 10th from 6:30 to 8:30. On this special evening, the social hall is transformed into a prayer temple with soft lighting, soft music from Deb Santa Maria, and as many prayers as you want from all of our practitioners participating that evening. So please add this to your calendar. It's a wonderful event, and I'm so glad to see it come back. Right now, Peter's going to show a slide of our contact team. These are the people in leadership roles that provide so many services and love and guidance for our center. So I thank them all, because there's so much happening at the center. Events, workshops, classes, and more. Please visit our website at oaklandcsl.org and sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for special updates and content you'll only find by looking and subscribing to Oakland Center. Please like us and subscribe to Oakland Center today. thinking about all the wonderful things that go on the center, looking at that picture and seeing those gorgeous people, and then that gorgeous, beautiful courtyard that we are so blessed to have and to maintain
Yes.
and to participate in it. I think it's a gift. So I want to give back to it so we can preserve it and invest in it. So if you're so inclined and you want to give something to the center, you can do so and hold it close to your heart, whatever it is. And follow along as I read. Divine love is me, blesses and multiplies this offering. It blesses all that I am and all that I give and all that I circulate. Thank you, love is me. Oh, we're so very fortunate to have not only a gorgeous center and ways to enjoy it, but there's ways that you can give to it. You can click the donate button on the website. That will lead you to the several different ways. You can do credit card up there under the donate button. You can do it by mail, by Zelle. You can text, or you can come to church on Sunday and contribute physically into our offering basket. So that puts me in a state of gratitude. So I want to just take a minute and want to re-thank so much Crystal. I want to thank Reverend Sunshine for doing our opening prayer. Crystal, you're just splendid. Thank you. I want to recognize Rev Deb Hammond from Savannah, Georgia tonight. I want to say a thank you to my Reverend Sally Bartholomew, who will be stepping in next week to resume hosting every other week. I want to give a shout out to Reverend Ikea, who's always supportive of our Wednesday night services and attends, and mostly, but I've already said her name, but I'm saying it again the right way. Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman, our beloved leader of our center. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine, for letting us have this forum to do this work. Also, I don't look good and sound good all by myself. I have a ton of help. And that help starts up in Portland, Oregon with the fabulous Peter Gum leading the AB team, PowerPoint, order, everything that he does. And he's invited two fabulous folks, Alice Herndon and Alice Knudsen, to do other activities behind the scenes. I am so grateful. They make me look good and they make me sound good. And if I didn't, it's my fault, not theirs. And finally, putting this all together requires some administrative guidance. It's not easy. We are playing with paradox. We are juggling with chainsaws. And Constance Chapman is the one that just gets it all together for Wednesday night, gives us the information, and gives us the moral and spiritual support to pull off a wonderful evening. Thank you for all you do, Constance. I appreciate you. So it's time for closing prayer. And tonight, that closing prayer is absolutely perfectly chosen to be delivered by our own Crystal Fry. Crystal, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I want to echo all those thanks, especially to the team who helped put on our IT team. I also wanted just to say, I forgot my closing point was actually another way to shake up the worldview is to join with East Bay Church of Religious Science in their 3rd annual Walk for Love and Health. This is going to be a place where we get to show our community how much we love everybody. And we're going to walk around the lake, make some signs. I think it'd be really fun. And since the potluck changed its date, you are all available now on October 28th to join in the fun. So let me know if you need any help finding information on that, but let's go ahead and go within to wrap up this beautiful experience. Thank you all for being here. Just taking a breath. I know that God is all there is. There's not a spot where God is not, and we are one with God. We are each unique expressions of that one sacred source, the force of love. And I just know that this time was a blessing for us all, especially me. everyone who is here, everyone who may see it, that our consciousness of love, of both and, of absolute inclusion reaches out and it touches the world as it touches our hearts and it softens those places where we are rigid. It opens us to more love, to the power, the creativity, the flexibility to build bridges, to move from us versus them to we are united in our diversity. And I'm just so grateful for this talk, for this possibility, for this community, for the bridges that we are all working to build in ourselves, in our relationships, in our community, in our lives. I give infinite joyful thanks for this and so much more. And I just release my word, knowing that it is so. And I ask you all to join me in blessing and say, and so it is.
And so
so
it is.
It is. Amen. Amen.
Blessed
Amen, Ashe, Aho, and Yeehaw.